I'm sure my female colleagues who tuned in would resonate with the feeling where you are in one of those meetings that is primarily dominated by men, and your perspectives are unknowingly skipped over or not as strongly considered. While we do know that most of it is done unconsciously and without malice, the fact of the matter is the situation is not a rarity. We all know we have to be smart-witted and strong-willed, and also have a strong sense of humor to make our arguments with fervor, and always make that little extra effort to be heard. For most of us women in this, or any professional sector for that matter, this has also become as unconscious. But whenever I think about it, I look back at my childhood. I was my parents' only child and a girl. Back in those days in India, not being male came with its own set of predicaments. In retrospect, I have to thank my father, who not only won't hold me back as was traditionally expected, but pushed me even harder. Some days I didn't feel like the society's conception of a girl, and truth be told, sometimes I really disliked it. I wanted not to be pushed to champion everything with jest and not work harder. Now it all seems like it was necessary. It was really a necessary boot camp for a professional sector role that I wanted to take on. It also made me value equitable gender representation in my workspace and admire all the women that I worked with, and to understand all the challenges that they were going through. I also knew the immense value their perspectives brought to the table, given their unique experiences and invisible struggles, including my own. When I sat down to write this address, I was trying to recap all my work across different geographies, Asia, Africa, and North America with different organizations. One commonality, I'd say, was that working closer to the ground always made me uniquely aware of women as the key cogs in the machinery that is society, the nation, the economy, in fact, any system. It's also peculiar that almost the entire development community has for the past many decades focused on women like Ruby on the ground as a primary stakeholder for systemic impact. It's almost as if the entire development community had unanimously conceded to the fact that when we invest in women leaders in the field, societies prosper and benefits reach all. I dig deeper into why we started solutioning around women as the core unit of interventions. That's when I realized that it could simply be because 70% of the international and local NGO staff is women. One of my fondest memories from my work with the energy program at the Rockefeller Foundation was to see the joy in the face of a woman who had the light of a bulb to cook her night meal while her daughter studied for her exams, or to see young women being able to use electric sewing machines and set small businesses. These memories are my proudest too. We know those families have been touched by enduring impact because we've strategically made their women into leaders where they have been able to make choices, even if it was around where the bulb had to be placed. And that is half the development challenge solved, if you ask for my radical opinion. But that's not what makes the case for our development sector so unique. So much of our work is centered around women and creating women leaders on the ground, but we don't see the same reflected in our sector itself. Even though 70% women constitute staff, but only 30% comprise the leadership in international as well as local NGOs. Women head only 12 to 14% of the nonprofits, with the largest budget in the US, and 24% of the top 100 nonprofits in the UK. Women like me, even after having amassed a wealth of experience over 3 decades, and I've stopped counting now, still feel like we have to raise our voices just a tad bit louder to be heard. As a sector working to reduce gender inequality in the country, it becomes imperative to create structures and collaborations that support and promote gender equality in the workplace. A months ago, Arthan, in collaboration with the Rockefeller Foundation, embarked on a journey to delve deep into the topic of women's leadership in the development sector. This ties in very closely to the Foundation's global commitment to gender equality. One example being a recent initiative launched by a collaboration that we've had with the Georgetown Institute for Women, Peace and Security and Hillary Clinton herself to accelerate progress for women and girls around the world, about which I will speak more later. What began as a series of interviews of women leaders in the development sector to chronicle and learn from their journeys has now given way to an extensive research study on the same. So far, over 50 plus women leaders across India and across organizations in the impact sector, including NGOs, CSRs, foundations, research institutions, intermediaries, funding organizations, social enterprises, etc., have been interviewed. This study aims to serve as a guide to plan gender pathways within organizations in order for them to emerge as gender transformative workplaces to enable women who are looking to navigate their path to leadership, as well as for men who can be instrumental in supporting the growth of women leaders. The importance of not only having strong gender policies, example, post, maternity, welfare, etc., in the organization, but also ensuring strict implementation and internalization of the same is going to be crucial. Since the culture of the organization flows from the leadership, it is so important for the leadership to be conscious of the decisions they're taking and to be gender sensitive. Many women who were interviewed talked about the conducive environment they've had for development and the support at home that made their growth possible. This leads to the question, what about women who might not come with such privileges or receive support from their families? How can organizations ensure their growth and development at par with their colleagues so that we have a level playing field? And what role can women who have had this privilege play? Most women spoke about the unsaid biases that are more difficult to manage than the direct gender discriminatory events. We began a dialogue with a diverse set of stakeholders in the sector who can shed light on specific issues pertaining to women's development, and we look forward to these commencing today. The objective of this track on women's leadership in the developing sector is to create a network of current and aspiring women leaders and stakeholders in the impact sector who can learn and support each other. Arthan foresees this track to begin dialogues meant to cement collaboration and partnership amongst these women and men who may work across diverse issues in this sector. Arthan also hopes that this will translate to a platform enabling continual engagement for women leaders in the sector. I cannot emphasize enough on the need for the capacity building support for women leaders in the sector, and I'm glad that Arthan is working to create an ecosystem to enable this same. I would like to close with a quote. Let it be that human rights are women's rights, and women's rights are human rights once and for all. These were the profound words spoken by the then First Lady of the United States, Hillary Clinton, in 1995 at the United Nations Fourth World Conference of Women in Beijing, in China. 25 years later, I had the opportunity to join the Beijing Plus 25 Summit just a few days ago, where she emphasized that we need to even be bolder and more ambitious than we were 25 years ago. The pandemic has only deepened the challenges facing women and girls, from violence, falling labor force participation in India, additional burden of managing work and home, falling behind in school, and so on. The work needed to make this world an equal place for all genders cannot and will not stop. Times and circumstances may change, but the endeavor towards equality must go on.